As a veteran who's been fighting the VA since 2009 for burn pit exposure service connection, I have read the bill. The bill literally directly impacts my life. But I can tell most of the Republicans who are supporting the Senate shooting down this bill either haven't read it or just don't understand it. Republican senators are trying to claim that the PACT Act, which gives health care to veterans exposed to burn pits, has a budgetary gimmick snuck into it by Democrats. And this is a lie. Even all the veteran service organizations are coming out and stating that this is a lie. I mean, the VFW tweeted this handy little video that shows how that it's a lie. And if you watch the redlining of the bill, don't worry, I'll link the video in the description, you'll see that the original version of the bill that they voted yes on and the version of the bill that they voted no on, the only differences are a few numbering items and one sentence removed from the bill. This sentence has nothing to do with the budgeting gimmick that Republicans are claiming were snuck into the bill, meaning that Republicans voted yes on the bill with that thing that they're considering a budgetary gimmick being in the bill and then later changed their mind to no. So either they didn't read the bill the first time, which is probably a bad thing to have your senators voting on bills that they didn't even look at, or they're lying to you. And the fist bumps on the Senate floor after they shot down the bill kind of making me think that they're lying to you. Because if you support the bill except for that budgetary gimmick, why are you celebrating shooting down the bill and then going on recess in August? Literally celebrating delaying veterans being able to access health care. But let's go into the budgetary gimmick that the Republicans are claiming are in the bill. Their complaint is that the funding for this bill would be classified as mandatory spending versus discretionary spending. And they're claiming that by classifying the funding for the PACT Act as mandatory, this is the budgeting gimmick. There's two categories of funding and financing in our government, mandatory or discretionary. Classifying a funding as either discretionary or mandatory is not a gimmick. That's literally how our government works. And they're hoping on the Republican voters not knowing the difference between discretionary and mandatory funding. And it's actually pretty simple. Discretionary funding has to be passed every year, while mandatory funding happens regardless. The debate over discretionary funding is actually what causes our government to shut down. Every September we hear about it that Congress failed to pass a budget and our government may shut down. In the event of a government shutdown, anything that's discretionary funding stops, while mandatory things like Social Security and veterans' disability compensation still keep going. Meaning if funding for the PACT Act is labeled as discretionary and the government shuts down, veterans who were getting health care for their exposure to burn pits stop getting it until the government resumes. And these government shutdowns are because of discretionary funding arguments, where members of Congress, both the House and the Senate, use discretionary funding as bargaining chips to get bills or other funding they want passed. So by arguing for the funding to not be mandatory, Republicans are arguing for the ability to pass the PACT Act and then not fund it, and to continue their tradition as using veterans as bargaining chips. Not a good look.